Halifa Saleh says Gambia is still a hopeless and a voiceless nation. Elsewhere, African leaders express need for regional and continental integration at the Pan-African Parliament session that gets underway in South Africa. An Egyptian parliament approves bill that seeks to increase the minimum wage and pension of civil servants. These and more coming on the news text, do stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the news text with me, Juldenja Suare. Many thanks for joining me, and now the news in detail. Halifa Saleh, presidential candidate for People's Democratic Organization for Independence and Socialism, said the Gambia is still a nation without hope and voice since attending independence some 56 years ago. According to him, lack of education among Gambians deter them from progress, adding that democracy is about getting benefits of your labor. He was speaking at the launch of the party's Transformative Agenda 2021 held on Tuesday. Omar Ahmed Toure tells us more of that in this report.
Halifa Saleh, the leader and presidential candidate for DOI, says the Gambia has been voiceless and hopeless for the past 56 years. He says his party's priority is to restore hopes in Gambians, hence the need for a transformative agenda.
Every day you hear people that I am afraid that if I say this, I may lose my job, or I will not get a job, or somebody will not consider me. That therefore I am voiceless. That I have shouted about my problem. I've shouted about my poverty. But nobody is there for me. And this is constantly what people say. I am powerless. We say we are liberated today, and every single day you hear people. I am voiceless. I am powerless. I am helpless. I'm hopeless. That's why DOI had to capture the state of our people in its preamble.
According to the prominent Gambian politician, what makes Gambians poor and ignorant is their lack of education. He stresses the needs for citizens to know who they are from independence to death, adding that the party's transformative agenda is out to do just that. Democracy, he continues, has been misunderstood as a colonial concept, but to him is different.
The coffers of the state, women every day at the marketplaces pay money. It goes into the coffers of the council. Why? That should return to become services for them. And that is why we have representatives. That is what democracy is all about. Your wealth should come back to you to provide you with services that will eradicate your poverty.
The top presidential hopeful asserts that DOI will redefine the territorial boundaries of the Gambia within 6 months in power. Honorable Saleh says the country will have absolute control over the management of its resources such as fisheries and mining sectors. He also promises to build a corporate state based on a new constitution that will uphold sovereignty status in Gambians. Reporting for iAfrica TV, this is Omar Ahmad Toure.
Halifa Saleh there speaking during the launch of the party's transformative agenda. Now, the former president Yahya Jammeh's residence in Kanilai used to be one of the best places in the country during his rule. But as our reporter Binta Jallo visited his native hometown, the ex-president's residence is left in a dilapidated state and furniture left to rot. She has more of that in this report.
What was known to be one of the best and beautiful houses in the country has turned to be the worst at its present state. One of the first things we could visibly see is that the dilapidated structures have no electricity supply. Kanilai is a village in southern Gambia near the border with Senegal. Former president of the Gambia, Jammeh, was born in the village and expanded it after coming to power. Previously, the town has been a quiet backwater home to small-scale maize and groundnut farmers and little else. It was more than a home to a presidential palace, a wrestling arena, luxury hotel, a game park and zoo. In 2016, after the presidential election, which the former president lost, Jammeh was forced to flee to Equatorial Guinea after he rejected the results in a dramatic U-turn. His house was ransacked by unknown persons and the place is left to decay. We visited Kanilai only to find the place that was known to be home to one of the best mansions in the country at the time in a total mess with displaced items. In June 2019, wildfire engulfed the Kanilai residence of former President Jammeh. In 2017, the government of the Gambia set up a commission of inquiry to look into the financial activities of the former President Jammeh, those of his family and close associates. The commission, which sat to almost 2 years and spent $50 million, completed its works and submitted the report to the President. A visit by the Jammeh Commission to the former President Jammeh's residence in Kanilai revealed the former dictator's taste in buildings and unique furnitures. However, many people argue that the place could have been preserved as a historic place. According to some, it could have generated employment for the youth around the area. For iAfrican News, Binti Jallo.
The fourth ordinary session of the fifth Parliament of the Pan-African Parliament is underway in South Africa. The discussions are being centered on the COVID-19 pandemic and its challenges on the African continent and the need for the continent to come together to find a solution to the pandemic. The week-long session will also feature the consideration and adoption of several reports of the Permanent Committee. Details of that in this report.
The Pan-African Parliament was set up to ensure the full participation of Africans in the economic development and integration of the continent. The Parliament is also intended as a platform for people from all African states to be involved in discussions and decision-making on the problems and challenges facing the continent. This fourth session is a week-long program that will see African parliamentarians engage under the African Union 2021 theme, Year of Arts, Culture and Heritage. The opening session was dominated by concerns regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly the role that African leaders need to play to ensure the protection of the people of this continent and not depend on the generosity of others. A number of speakers agree that in order for these leaders to achieve that, unity is key.
One thing the pandemic of COVID-19 has taught all of us is that we must hasten the process of regional and continental integration, because acting together will boost our capacity to succeed. We must encourage South Africa, Rwanda, Senegal, Ghana and others to develop the capacity to produce our own vaccines so that we can more effectively deal with future pandemics and not be dependent on foreign supplies and benevolence for the protection of our peoples.
It is particularly disappointing that decades after independence, Africa could not manage to produce its own homegrown vaccine. This tells us that a lot needs to be done to achieve our African shared vision, and this Parliament has a big role to play in that regard.
It is time that we recognize that unity is not just because we show might, we show wealth, we show how we can speak. Unity is sometimes you reducing your pace to the slowest amongst us, You accepting that all of us need to get to where all of us must get, because the end game is about unifying, it is about building relations, it is about building people, and therefore building the economy of Africa.
Other leaders called for the recognition of the endeavors undertaken by the African leaders thus far in tackling the pandemic.
The socio-economic impact of this pandemic will be felt for quite some time. However, there are glimmers of hope, particularly as we observe many of our governments and leaders initiating the first steps of national vaccination programs.
Former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo is also expected to deliver a message in one of the set programs here.
African leaders expressed need for regional and of course continental integration in solving the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, in an effort to improve the standards of living, the Egyptian parliament has ratified cabinet decision to raise minimum wages and pension for the country's civil servants. The increase of the employees' pension will be 30% and the minimum wages is increased to $154, up from $120. More of that in this report.
Abdurrahman is a logistics officer at a state-owned petrochemicals company. Married with a child, he welcomes the new minimum wage.
For sure, it will make difference for me, for my family. For example, if the limit was 2,000, and I am ready to make my budget for my life, for my lifestyle, to get some things. So sure, it will be increased for lifestyle, for my child, for medical, for the medical, for everything. Not only for food.
The new minimum wage is $154, up from $128. It also comes with an 11% annual salary raise and bonuses for all civil servants. There's a 13% increase in pensions as well. 16 million people will benefit from the new scheme.
This decision will help a lot of Egyptians to keep and to be capable for the lifestyle, and also to get their needs and their wants. Encourage all youth to work, and also will give them hope that the things will be better in future.
Aware of the huge burden civilians had to carry with aggressive 5-year austerity measures, followed by a COVID-19 induced recession, the government has doubled funds for social welfare programs too.
There is around $2 billion in the new budget to help citizens sustain the latest economic effects, like the Takaful Karama program launched by the president for the unemployed and low-income earners, as well as Dignified Life program to develop poor villages.
Raising minimum wages and pensions for the next fiscal year are costing the government about $5 billion.
The state budget has an average annual deficit of $25 billion, and lately, because of the coronavirus, revenue has been lower. The funds are coming from state budget and will cover through debt instruments, local and international. The government is targeting around $63 billion in the next fiscal year through foreign currency bonds and through treasury bills from local banks.
The latest salary raise applies on civil servants because the private sector has asked for a rain check. Most businesses say they're still recovering from the economic fallout of the coronavirus pandemic and cannot afford more expenditure at this point.
We will now take a short break. Still to come, it's more local and of course international news. Do stay tuned.
Following the announcement by the Independent Electoral Commission, the IEC, of the dates for the general voter registration scheduled from the 29th of May to 11th July 2021, the National Council for Civic Education, NCCE, reminds the public that voter registration is an integral part of the electoral process, as it is key to franchise as stated in Section 39 of the Constitution, and hence a civic right and a duty for all eligible Gambians.
The NCCE therefore encourages every eligible citizen to fully participate in this crucial national exercise, as it is the basis for any credible and participatory election. The National Council for Civic Education informs the public that to register and acquire a voter's card in the upcoming general voter registration exercise, one has to prove your Gambian citizenship by producing one of the following documents as stated in Section 12 of the Elections Act: birth certificate, ID card, passport, or alcalo or district chief attestation. As the Gambia prepares for this very important national exercise, the National Council for Civic Education reminds the public to stay away from any altercation and refrain from the use of abusive language, provocative actions, intimidations, thugs and physical confrontation at all times, as these contravene the laws of the Gambia. The public is encouraged to follow due process to seek redress when the need arises during the period to ensure that peace and stability prevail throughout the process. Voter's card is your key to franchise. Register to vote and vote wisely. This message is brought to you by the National Council for Civic Education, NCCE, with support from the United Nations Development Programme.
Welcome back. If you're tuning in, this is the News Text with me, Juldenjai Sware, and now to the rest of our stories. Modou Njai, a key player and one of the ringleaders of the December 30th coup attempt, was the latest to appear before the Truth Commission on Wednesday. Njai was at the TRRC to explain the reason why they staged a coup, despite knowing that it was considered illegal and could amount to treason. According to him, the level of human rights violations meted on Gambians triggered their move. Khadija Toseka has more of that in this report.
A tiny West African state ruled by Yahya Jammeh from when he staged a bloodless coup in 1994 to 2016. The Truth Commission has revealed colossal evidence of 22-year rule branded by gross human rights violations that were done directly or indirectly by Jammeh. The violations cut across all diversities in the country, ranging from civil servants and security forces to women and children. In December 2014, a group of Gambians with military background residing in the Gambia and abroad, realizing that it would take a status quo in order to end abuse and tyranny, took it upon themselves to defend the country and honor their colleagues who were killed, tortured and abused by Jammeh's camp. The former member of the Gambia Armed Forces, who was also a key player of the coup, cited the reason why they planned to topple the legitimately elected government.
The 9 inmates.
What
about them? They killed them. Who killed them? The former president gave directives. Give directives for what? To kill them. And what was the problem with that? We believe that those people did not even exhaust their appeal cases and he just killed them out of like his will. To kill them.
ñooñu dañ nekkoon nañ ci jamono boo xam ne sax jeexaluñ woon yoon wiñ doon dappale seen layoo mu jee rey leen rek daanaka ci li nga xam ne nii moo ko neex.
So it was your belief that the president violated the law. He murdered those people, correct?
Bon niñ ko gisee daal mooy ne président bi dafa yàqal loi rey nit ñooñu.
Yes, sir.
He further explained how the event of the December 30th unfolded.
So Saturday, Sunday, you relax, then Monday, Monday, then challenge attack on that state house.
We relax on Sunday, and Monday we attack the state house.
Tell us how that happened.
Then
divide into 2 groups.
We divided ourselves into two groups. One has to come through the front gate, the other one through the back gate.
So
that's what we did when we went. We discussed that when we go there, we have to talk with the military on sentries there that we are not your enemies. We are here to rescue our country.
There
are some who supposed to be inside to speak with the military, but they didn't do their job.
After a heavy gunfire exchange at the president's residence, 3 people were killed, including the main alleged ringleader, Lamin Sani, and others were arrested. Their dream of freeing the country from the clutches of a dictator came to an abrupt end when their coup failed. In 1st December 2016, former President Yahya Jammeh was defeated by a coalition opposition candidate, Adama Barrow. Jammeh initially accepted defeat to everyone's sucking, but later changed his mind, alleging voter irregularities. After intervention of ECOWAS and other international players, he was forced to flee into exile in Equatorial Guinea. Khadijatu Seka, iAfrica News.
Despite the economic downturn largely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, Nigeria's economy grew 0.5% in the first quarter, lifted by higher crude production and oil prices. The country's National Bureau of Statistics said the non-oil sector, which is the government is trying to make the main growth sector, rose 0.79% in the first quarter. More of that in this report.
The data is clearly an indication that Nigeria's economy is growing, albeit very slowly. The National Bureau of Statistics says though the 2021 first quarter growth rate was slower than the 1.87% growth rate recorded in the first quarter of 2020, it is higher than the 0.11% recorded in the fourth quarter of 2020. The key driver of the growth is the non-oil sector, which grew by 0.79% in real terms.
The impact may not be significant, but what is important is that we are still in a positive growth territory. And when we talk about a GDP growth performance of less than 1%, which is what we have, it shows that the economy is still struggling to recover from the shocks of the pandemic and even the recession that followed the pandemic.
The growth in the non-oil sector threw up surprises. It was mainly driven by the manufacturing, agriculture and information and communication sectors.
The first surprise has to do with the performance of the the manufacturing sector, which posted a GDP growth of 3.4%. In the last quarter, before the one that was reported, I'm talking of Q4, it recorded a contraction of 1.5%. And given what we know about the manufacturing sector, about the experiences that they have had in the last 1 year, especially around the foreign exchange liquidity, around the challenges at the ports, the purchasing power, the inflation, and the security. We never expected that we can have such a significant growth number from the GDP.
Growth in the oil sector was still negative, but the level of contraction in the first quarter is a far improvement from that of the last quarter of 2020, as oil production increased to 1.72 million barrels per day over the 1.56 million barrels per day recorded in the first quarter of last year.
So this contraction is high level of improvement, and it reflects what is going on around global oil prices till this moment today. So I would say that while it's still in the negative territory, it's a significant improvement for Nigeria. And it also means that it's very hopeful the Nigerian authorities will not complain in terms of revenue generation like it was done in Q4 2020.
Then it's also a bit disturbing that some sectors have remained in recession. particularly the hospitality, recreation, and entertainment sectors. They are still practically in recession. In this latest figure, they still posted a negative GDP growth. Hospitality posted a contraction of about 4.6%. The entertainment and recreation sector also posted a negative of 1.3%. This is very disturbing because these sectors have been down for over a year.
With Nigeria's population growth rate estimated at around 3%, economic experts say the country needs GDP growth rate above that figure for serious economic progress. While the IMF projects a 2.5% growth rate for the country in 2021, the government's forecast is 3%. And if the latest GDP figure is anything to go by, the government has its work cut out to sustain and increase the tempo of growth in the economy to anywhere close to the figure it envisages.
The news text, but for more of these and others, join us in our subsequent news. Do have a nice day. Bye-bye.
The pride we take in our